I need my sugar.
You sorry?
I need my sugar.
Oh. Everybody's mic on? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Troy City Council. We have a public hearing. I'd like to call a public hearing to order at this point in time. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Keel,
Present.
Councilmember Brosnan,
Here.
Councilmember Spain McLaren,
Present.
Councilmember Vera,
Present.
Councilmember Soriento.
Here.
Councilmember Casey, Council President Steele,
Present.
all are present.
Thank you.
Council President, I move that the council resolve itself into a committee of the whole for the purpose of conducting a public hearing.
Clerk, will you please read the notice of publication?
The City Council of the City of Troy will hold a public hearing on August 8th, 2024 at 5:45 PM in the City Council Legislative Chamber, Troy City Hall, 433 River Street, 5th floor, Troy, New York, in connection with the following matter: the granting of a cable television franchise agreement held by Spectrum Northeast LLC.
The public hearing is now open. The rules of the chair pursuant to section 2.34 of the special rules of the Troy City Council are as follows. No one but a citizen or taxpayer of the city or an attorney at law representing a citizen or taxpayer or group of citizens or taxpayers shall be allowed to speak, provided, however, that the president of the council may, in his or her discretion, allow other interested persons to speak. The persons wishing to speak shall, upon being recognized by the chair, give his or her name and residence, and if an attorney, the names and addresses of every person whom she represents. All remarks shall be directed to the chair, and no colloquy between or among persons presented shall be permitted. No person shall extend his or her remarks beyond 5 minutes, but if the person represents several others, the chair may make reasonable and appropriate exceptions to this time limitation. The allowance of any rebuttal remarks shall be solely within the discretion of the chair. At this time, if anyone wishes to speak part of the public hearing, please come forward. Does anyone wish to speak as part of the public hearing? And for the third time, does anyone wish to speak as part of the public hearing? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing.
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento, second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Casey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Can go check it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular August meeting of the Troy City Council. Today is August 8th. It is 6 o'clock. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. That's all.
Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Keel.
Present.
Councilmember Brazen.
Here.
Councilmember Spain McLaren.
Present.
Councilmember Vera.
Present.
Councilmember Soriento.
Here.
Councilmember Casey.
Here.
Council President Steele.
Present.
All are present.
Thank you. This evening, we have 3 ordinances and 1 resolution on our agenda. At this point in time, anyone who wishes to speak and address the council on any one of those items on the agenda, please feel free to come forward. Does anyone wish to speak on any agenda item this evening? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the agenda. Ordinance 36.
Ordinance 36, ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a cable television franchise held by Spectrum Northeast LLC. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento, seconded by Councilmember Keel. Discussion on the resolution, on the ordinance. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Ordinance 36 passes.
Ordinance 40.
Ordinance 40, ordinance authorizing the sale of surplus real property acquired by in rem foreclosure of the premises at 74 New Turnpike Road. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Keel, second.
Second.
Councilmember Soriento. Discussion on the resolution, on the ordinance. Is anyone here representing the developer on this proposal?
He was here last week.
Is there anyone here who can answer questions if we have any? Okay, thank you. Does any council member have any question?
Council President.
Councilmember?
I know that the prospective purchaser had presented a plan. Through this sale, is there any requirement that the developer follow exactly that plan? Or is this, does the developer have options to change what was presented? This is just the sale of the land. We're not holding them to what they presented, correct?
The contract itself does reflect this particular use with these particular, this particular development, and the sale is contingent on planning board approval of the proposal. City approval, whether they need zoning variances or any other.
Thank you.
Dana, do you know if the developer plans to request a pilot for this?
I don't know.
I was surprised to see that these were considered rental units and not owner occupied. I know that's concerning to me. And I don't have anyone to voice that with other than to say that I think it would be a much more successful plan were it to be owner occupied. Also, who will be responsible for if we're talking 50 new homes, the infrastructure associated with that?
I can actually answer both of those to the extent of my ability. And I was just told there is no application for a pilot. So if the project were to be subdivided into 50 individual lots, those lots would have to comply with our zoning for that particular area of the city. Whereas if it's multiple homes built on one lot, likewise, that would have to be consistent with our comprehensive plan and our zoning requirements in order for it to be approved. So the question of whether it needs to be one or the other, in part, will be informed by our existing zoning law. So if our existing zoning laws, for example, hypothetically, do not allow multiple single-family homes on one lot without a variance, then it would not be automatically in compliance. If, on the other hand, single-family homes have to have a minimum lot size in that part of the city or certain setbacks, and that can't be met with the construction the way it is, then divided into 50 lots would be, wouldn't be possible either. So whether they're rentals or individual homes, either one has to fit within our zoning in order for the project to move forward.
And these will become city streets.
Well, again, if it's one parcel and it's being privately maintained, then it could be a private fee,
Your
but
shadow is now speaking.
it's on the real estate committee and may have more information.
Thank you.
So Council President, no, they're going to be privately maintained roads, infrastructure, sewer. That's the developers.
Thank you.
Council President Seal.
Councilmember Casey.
Aaron and I were in that meeting. I'm not saying I can answer everything, but we were also here last week. It was rentals, but they're geared towards over 55. It'd be like your own little house, but it's almost like an apartment. And it'd be good for people who are trying to, downsizing from a house. Their kids have grown up and they want to downsize.
I understand that.
I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I am familiar with that.
Okay.
I just wanted to voice my personal opinion that I would rather see that be owner occupied than rental. But any other questions for the members of the administration? Thank you both.
You're welcome.
If no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 noes. Ordinance 40 passes.
I just want to say I'm glad we are unloaded this piece of property. It's been an albatross and has been city-owned far too long. Ordinance 41.
Ordinance 41, an ordinance adding chapter 72 planning board to the code of the city of Troy. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento, second.
Second.
Councilmember Casey, discussion on the resolution, on the ordinance. I'm bound to determine we're going to do a resolution tonight. We'll get there. There will be a resolution, but this is an ordinance. Any discussion on this? We have seen this for quite some time, on and off. It's unfortunate, but I will call for a vote if there's no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
4 ayes, 3 noes. Ordinance 41 passes.
Resolution 124.
Resolution 124, resolution of the Troy City Council establishing training requirements for all members of the City Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento, second.
Second.
Councilmember Keel. Councilmember Casey.
Council President Steele, I wanted to make a motion to amend Resolution 124. I handed everybody a copy and there's also one in the back. The proposed amendment basically is about the training, and it's basically saying that any training that's going to be reimbursed is just pre-approved, and that wasn't in the first draft. It has to be approved first. That's-
Well, I think Councilmember Casey, in order for the record to be accurate, we need to actually cite what the additions in the amendment is.
Mhm.
So in the second whereas, we're adding the language, the training requirements of the general city law have been incorporated in the Troy City Code. In the now therefore be it resolved paragraph, adding in addition to training for board members provided by or sponsored by the city of Troy. Additionally, we are adding the city and whether the training be delivered in person, online, or by other means. We are in the be it further resolved paragraph, adding the language 5 months or less, and adding state and city training requirements and striking municipal policy as provided herein. There's the addition of a be it further resolved paragraph that states that the Commissioner of Planning and Community Development shall seek an annual budget appropriation for the training of board members, from which account the Commissioner may, in his or her sole discretion, reimburse the tuition expense of an approved course of training for a member, provided that both the expense and the training course shall have been approved in advance by the Commissioner. I believe that
Thank you.
constitutes all of the additions.
I
Any
just have a copy of
discussion
it when you
on-
guys are done.
I'm sorry,
I see the copy. I don't have a copy of it, so.
Councilmember Vera.
I have to recuse
Okay.
from this vote. I did not realize that this is affects the. I have a family member that serves.
Okay, thank you for that. Any discussion on the amendment? I think we had a motion to amend, but I don't believe we had a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Brosnan. We've gone through the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, we'll first vote on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And now on the resolution 124 as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted
And
as
recused.
amended with one recusal.
It was 6 and 1, right?
Correct.
All right, so 6 ayes, 1 no, 120 resolution.
No, it was no.
Oh, I'm sorry. 6 ayes, 1 recusal, 124 passed.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council on any item? This was a non-agenda opportunity. Please come forward.
Everybody. I'm Greg Kimball Cohen, live at Mount Ida.
Greg, our mics are atrocious, so please speak right into it. And if it's better to take it off the stand, if you wish, we appreciate your cooperation. Thank
Is
you.
this working? Okay.
That's great. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. I sent over to all of you guys, you should have it, a folder of documents that I'm just going to run through very quickly. So the first is Mayor Mantello's comments at the April 4th, 2024 City Council meeting, where she says, "We know about the whole constitutionality of bonding for monies, and we know that obviously it's based on reimbursement, or a lot of times grants that you don't receive for a year and a half. The good news is that Part UU of the state budget," and I'll stop for a moment. Obviously, I'm talking about lead service line replacement. I'm always here talking about lead service line. I'll continue. The good news is that in Part UU of the state budget, there is a proposal to include bonding for the grants. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Obviously, it's being negotiated as we speak. John McDonald and Jay Gash for that. And that was said at the April 4th, 2024 City Council meeting. Part UU, which I said minutes later, having rushed here, passed in TED of the 2023 session of the state legislature. So when that was being said, that was not true because it had happened a year prior. And I'm not doing this as a gotcha, but just to like urge you guys to reflect on how on the ball people are. And I get that like things are really complicated and there's a lot going on in the city besides lead service line replacement. But just to emphasize, this is not a mistake you make when you're paying close attention to what's happening with Part UU and TED in the budget. You're a year off. Okay. Next item, if you flip over, this is, and I've also attached part UU in the budget for you guys. Next item is an ordinance that was passed in March 2024 in Syracuse. The bond ordinance for lead service line replacement. I've underlined the important part, from the water main to the water meter. That's to say public and private. Next one is Rochester, also a grant recipient under bipartisan infrastructure law, lead service line replacement funding. This passed in April 2024. And this also is bonding for public and private lead service line replacement. Next one is Albany. This one permits the Albany Water Board, which is a different governing authority, to bond for public and private lead service line replacement. And if you go into their account on Emma, it definitely looks worth exploring whether they've actually already bonded. I can't say that certainly because, you know, I'm not working with them, but they got 5.5 million for that every year. And it seems likely that they'd move forward, especially given what Mayor Sheehan said. The next one is an exchange between Majority Leader Casey and a resident. And the first thing that I've indicated we can skip past, but the second one that I want to flag over is number 3 here. Majority Leader says, as you are aware, bonding for private lands is unconstitutional. However, the mayor has told bond council that we will be moving forward, but we need bond council to sign off. They are presently working to find a legal route for us to do so. Council President, I don't want to bring this up and then have a bunch of other people follow, but I would love to hear Majority Leader Casey, what you think is a legal route that is also unconstitutional for bonding. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council? If so, please come forward.
I hope you can hear me. Jonna Favreau, 67 Excelsior Ave. When I was sitting down to think about what I wanted to say tonight, I looked back at my notes from February 2023, and the sad thing is I could be standing here reading the exact same thing, word for word. A year and a half later, and I'm still just as confused, frustrated, and disappointed that the city has received funding specifically for replacing lead service lines, and the money is not being spent. The only difference from a year and a half ago is that instead of the grant award being $500,000, the award amount is $8.9 million, not including an additional $3.9 million as an interest-free loan. Now, a year and a half ago, $500,000 was out of context for me. I didn't know how many lead service lines were within the city, and I didn't know how much it would cost to replace one line, let alone all of them. All I knew that was in relation to my lifestyle, $500,000 was a lot of money, and it had to be enough to replace just one line, and that was the line into my house. And for those of you who are not sitting here a year and a half ago, I was standing here holding my 6-month-old child who had just tested positive for lead in his blood, just as his 2-year-old sibling had only a few months earlier. And as a reminder, there is no safe level of lead in a child's blood, 0. That test should come back 0. But now, a year and a half later, I know how many lead pipes $13.8 million can remove from the city. And if we're estimating high, that's just about 1,300 pipes, or half of the estimated total that still needs to be removed from the city. And yet here we are 8 months into an administration that promised to remove all lead pipes during the first 4-year term, and we're sitting on the only means in which we can do so. And for what reason? I quote from a press release from July 26th, just 2 weeks ago. Mayor Mantello announced today that Moody's Investor Service gave the A1 rating for the City of Troy's new $8 million in public improvement serial bonds, which are subject to reimbursement. These bonds will allow for infrastructural improvements such as drainage repairs, new sidewalks, paving, and more. Now, I'm not arguing against these improvements. What I'd like to point out is that the city is willing to bond for $8 million for paving improvements in a time period when we don't have a comptroller, but is unwilling to bond for $8 million to remove a potent neurotoxin from our drinking water. Both of these federal grants are reimbursable, and there's literally no difference in funding. Two other municipalities, or three, as Greg has pointed out, in New York State have passed an ordinance to bond after receiving the same bipartisan infrastructure aid. So my question to all of you is, why not Troy? If we'd like to believe that we're leading the way, then why are we waiting to follow the lead of others? The federal government is literally giving us money to replace the entirety of the lead service line, and we're all debating whether or not we can use the money to do so. We've already spent grant funds to replace the service lines, the $500,000 that was given to us back in 2017. So what's the difference between the funding? You've got a choice to make. You can either adopt an ordinance authorizing Troy to issue bonds to replace lead pipes, like the pipe that was replaced in front of my home. The pipe, when taken out of the ground, literally gave me a sigh of relief. There were people there, brought me to tears. Surprise, surprise, I'm always crying. Or you can continue to do nothing. And while you continue to do nothing, just know that there are thousands of pipes still poisoning residents every single day that you decide to sit and wait. And the sighs that you might hear echoing on the streets of the city streets won't be of relief. They'll be of guilt. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Does anyone else wish to?
Hello, good evening. I'll pop that off too. Good evening, all. My name's Rob Hayes. I'm the Director of Clean Water for Environmental Advocates New York. I've spoken here before on the issue of lead service lines. I'm not a Troy resident. I'm based in Albany, but I'm here to support a lot of the residents that are giving public comment tonight. And I wanted to start by kind of highlighting Jana's story, because I think her story really highlights how urgent this issue is in Troy, the issue of lead in drinking water and the issue of lead poisoning. You know, the city of Troy continues to detect some of the highest levels of lead in drinking water in the entire state. And so there's a tremendous urgency to replace all of Troy's lead pipes as quickly and efficiently and equitably as possible. And the new federal funding that the city has provisionally been awarded from the federal government will really help accelerate that process. And so I want to talk a little bit about kind of bonding and follow up on some comments that Greg and others have made. You know, bonding for that $13 million that the city has received is absolutely essential. That's how you get the money up front. That's how you make the kind of scale of investments necessary to get enough crews out on the street and do this work at scale. We know that the city, or we've heard from the city, that they're still working through some of the paperwork with PFC and DOH, and that there hasn't been a finalized agreement for that funding yet. And we recognize that that does take time. But what it seems like the city can do right now to show their commitment to bonding for lead pipe replacement is to pass this bond resolution, authorizing the city for that when that paperwork is done, when all the sign up has been achieved, that the city can go to market for those bonds as quickly as possible and start that work to get these pipes out of the ground. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the constitutionality of spending certain types of public funds to replace privately owned lead pipes. And we've been heartened to hear the mayor and her administration say that they are committed to bonding for this purpose and spending this money to replace all of the lead pipes in Troy. And that it seems right now that there is a problem with the bond councils who won't approve that type of bonding. And we have to figure out a way around it. That cannot prevent the city from moving forward on this really critical initiative to protect public health and protect clean drinking water. And we think that passing that bond resolution is a really important step towards achieving that resolution and moving forward on this. So thank you for the time and thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Does anyone else wish to address the council?
Good evening. Vincent Strinkowski. I live on Delaware Avenue. So I'm going to join the chorus of people who are extremely dissatisfied with Campbell Avenue nonsense. I'm a pro-family, pro-business kind of guy, and I don't see either of those variables having been considered for that project. When I work around my house, and I'm sure a lot of you do, there's an old adage, measure twice, cut once. I don't think anybody measured once on Campbell Avenue, and I think they've been cutting about 27 times. Let's be real, okay? I patronize those businesses. They're all suffering. Whether it's Bob DeMayo's liquor store, the Cumberland Farms, Inferno Pizza, Chicken Joe's, they're all suffering, okay? There was a lot more common sense that could have been used for that project. Shorter stretches being worked on, people being let through, coordination of deliveries. Bob DeMayo's liquor store is like 3/4 empty. It's sad. I'm not that I'm promoting alcohol use, but his store looks pathetic because he can't get his deliveries. That could have been worked on. I came down the street Monday morning to go to the bank, and I came through the neighborhood that you have to take the whatever. You just can't use Campbell. And I ended up at the light, and as I'm passing from Sherman onto Campbell, it's a flagman where it all begins, and there's a car pulling up to the flagman, probably looking for some clue about what to do. The flagman is like this with a cell phone. The moment I passed him to the time I pulled up to the light, to the time the light changed, the flagman's on his phone. The person in the car is clueless because the flagman's not doing his job, and he was still on his phone. And the person finally just drove past the flagman who wasn't holding a flag, he was holding his phone. So again, I don't know why they're there if they're not waving people to where they need to go. Again, I'm a pro-family, pro-business guy. I feel the pain of the lead pipe situation. I'm lucky to be in a part of Troy that's got newer plumbing, so I'm not dealing with that. But if I was, I would be beside myself. But to see my part of Troy, which I know is going to look beautiful when it finally gets done, whenever that is, look this way and be this way, it's unconscionable. And what those people in that neighborhood adjacent to Campbell are going through, I can't imagine what they're dealing with either. But I also know that they're being very cranky to people driving through the neighborhood. I also see all the speed bumps that I would love to see. I was here a couple months ago. I spoke about speed bumps near our school, especially School 2 where I work, and Carroll Hill that I live across the street from. I would love to see those speed bumps get repurposed when the construction is finally done, because there's still people speeding down Delaware Avenue on that beautiful new blacktop. Okay? Not acceptable. There's nobody there watching that street when they're speeding. There's nobody there watching the people blow through the stop sign on on Delaware and Project. And I'm going to circle back to something that I wish I would have talked about a long time ago. Who came up with the name of Project Road and Project Street for this part of Troy? That is beyond me. I mean, do you want to stigmatize an entire neighborhood? Did a city as historic as Troy not have any more names to come up with? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the new court behind me is called Carroll Hill Court. Did someone not have come up with Carroll Hill Road, Griswold Boulevard, whatever? Project? Really? What is this? The 60s, the 50s? We're calling a street project? Somebody put in a resolution. Can we rename those streets, please? It's ridiculous to have streets with that name on. Because I'm from downstate. When you think project, you think projects, which means a very undesirable apartment complex. That apartment complex adjacent to those roads is not undesirable. In fact, you guys put a lot of money into making those apartments look beautiful now, which I commend you on. They look great. And the people there are great, because I live 2 houses away from them. So again, please take the stigma project off those two streets. It's not cool. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm a little passionate, but I love Troy. I will continue to love Troy. And if there's anything else I can do as a South End guy who's very observant, I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Wearing another hat as Chair of the Troy Housing Authority, I can say that the Board of Commissioners shares your feelings and has asked that the city consider renaming Project Road. So thank you for reiterating our position of that. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Mark. I live in District 4. It is now August 8th. Do we know when the Q1 or the Q2 fiscal reports are going to be available for public view? Do we have a city comptroller? Is there one in the works? These are questions I would like answers to. I'm hoping you're asking them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Hello, my name is Mickey Dobbin. I live at 18 Second Street. And I did not come here with any statements planned or anything, but after hearing Greg and having also, seen a little bit what Greg has presented, I think it's very incumbent for you to take upon what he said. It is, and also hear some of the other testimony, it is horrible that this city has let years go by and allowed children to ingest so much lead. And I wish we had an administration in the city that would be working on this, working on a budget, working on getting a comptroller instead of doing photo ops. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening, David Banks, 46 Bell Avenue. Yeah, so I would also like to reiterate the importance of getting moving on lead service lines immediately. I'm the proud owner of a lead service line. I don't have kids, but a family that used to live there had two adorable kids. And my wife actually, she has a disability that puts her at, a great risk for, different sorts of metal. She's very sensitive to metal levels in her diet. So if we get to the point that we get, she gets monthly blood tests to keep them in check. And so like it's really important to me that that these lead service lines get fixed. And as Greg helpfully pointed out, 3 cities have managed to do exactly this. Well, 2 cities and a waterport, will do exactly this. And so it seems that we could as well. I'd also like to, also reiterate what we just heard about the comptroller, the 2 city budgets, quarterly budgets. That seems really crucial since everything that we're talking about here has to do with whether or not we can bond for something. So I'd love to, we need full staff there. I can't go around the city without seeing an advertisement for hiring police officers. We got to do that for a comptroller too. So I think I don't know where the money's coming from for those lawn signs, but we need them for the comptroller's office as well. And finally, it came to my attention. This is completely different. It came to my attention that in a previous meeting, someone came here saying that they want to change the city flag. In my book, The City Authentic, How the Attention Economy Builds Urban America, I actually spend several pages on flag changing efforts. And I advise against the longitudinal study. It's not longitudinal, but a study across several different cities that tried to replace their flags in a similar manner, had a 50% success rate. Cities could not handle the argument about replacing their flag. And right now, I don't think Troy is up to that task either. And second, it is actually expensive. Replacing a city symbol, a recognized city symbol, usually has some sort of public process attached to it, usually necessary, and that can very quickly run into the six figures to do it correctly. It varies by state. I, believe it or not, have not directly looked at how it goes in New York State, but it can very quickly require thousands of dollars worth of public input, advising, and management and stuff like that. If you wanted to do it, by the letter of the law. So I generally, while yes, a flag is somewhat uninspired, I don't find it, probably a good use of funds.
Thank you, David. Does anyone else wish to address the council at this time? If so, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Saup. I live at 118 7th Ave in the Berg. I also wasn't planning to come and speak tonight, but last time I was here on this, was actually when I met Jonna. I was 8.5 months pregnant with my son, Ben. And we found out that we have a lead service line, also proud owner of a lead service line in Troy. And it was really scary, obviously, because I had been drinking our water. So I had to go to Burdett and get a heavy metals test, which is a special test that they don't do often. So it was sent off. I had to go to another place, yada, yada. I turned out all right because we have some filtration, but there was still some lead detected. So as Jonna pointed out, no amount of lead is a safe amount of lead. So there were things I needed to do. Then, we sort of assumed like, okay, this is going to move forward, funding is coming, yada, yada, yada. And now we find ourselves at another standstill. We had hundreds of Troy families who were spent the last year fighting for the only birth center that we have in Rensselaer County that was set to close, which was the Burdett Birth Center. I was one of the lead organizers for that. And we saved it for 5 years, $5 million in funding. But we did save it for these next 5 years. And it is mind-blowing to me that a group of people who are not elected officials can work tirelessly to take on the Catholic health system and save it for 5 years. But this administration can't get it together on something as simple as lead pipes when it's possible, the money is there, and you know how important it is to the health and well-being and safety of families and children in the city. Like, I get it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Does anyone else wish to address the council?
Oh, welcome back. Let's look back. I like taking this off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to also talk about lead service lines. I rent in this city.
Please state your name.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Raymond, Highland Ave. I rent. So, I don't own my lead service line. I specifically was able to, because of, the ability to rent and change apartments, was able to choose an apartment specifically because there was no lead service line in that house, as shown on like the map. And I think it's unfortunate that it has come to the point where homeowners are begging you guys to, bond so that, you guys will be able to get out, the money now to replace lead service lines. And people who rent are literally choosing different apartments because there are no lead service lines at those apartments. And because of how difficult it is for, the various different choices that people have in housing, pet, or you want, not to drink lead, or not, have other choices, aesthetic choices, that people are leaving the city, frankly. People don't, want something to reach their, red flag, essentially. They want something specific in their housing situation, and not replacing lead lines is something seriously impacting the health and well-being of the city, as well as the individuals within the city. So I just want to note that, yes, this is something that is very serious and very important, both for, the health of the people in the city, but also for your financial well-being, because the more residents here, the more people will be able to, go out, eat here, do things in the city, and that is more money and more revenue for the city. So I just want to remind you guys that, it's really important to replace these lead service lines to provide the services that the people in the city of Troy require. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. If you wish to address the council, please come forward. Anyone? Rick?
Hi, you all know me. I'm Rick Morrissey. I'm a deputy corporation counsel now for the city. I've been working on the lead problem and lead replacement program with the city of Troy for a few years now. And I'd like to just address the council just to hopefully clear up some misconceptions. Number one, I think it is true that Rochester, Syracuse, and the Albany Water Board have passed bond resolutions. You can pass bond resolutions all day long. The issue is whether you can issue the bonds or not. And I don't believe they have issued any bonds because they can't. They can't get a bond council to sign off on the issuance. The city of Troy faces the same problem at the present time. Neither the state legislature nor the AG nor the controller have stepped up to offer a written opinion that would authorize or that would opine that that the constitutional prohibition would not bar the city from spending money on private side, spending New York State tax money on private side replacement. All they've done, as far as I know, is that section UU that Greg was referring to is to say if you can have a useful life if you do issue a bond of 30 years for the work. So that's number one. Nothing I think would make anyone happier in either the prior administration or this administration than to be able to issue a bond and fund full lead replacement throughout the city for both private and public side. But the fact is you can't do that lawfully right now. Secondly, I don't know. We have both the prior administration and this administration have spent over $1 million in ARPA funds and are continuing to spend more. That's federal money for private side replacement throughout the city. There are crews working every day as we speak. I mean, not right now perhaps, but during the days, replacing lead service lines throughout the city. That is work that is being done on a consistent basis with the funds that we can lawfully expend for that purpose. I think someone said that the city received funding or grant funding and is just refusing. We've received no grant funding. You get the grant funding, the 13 million or whatever that is, that reimburses money that you have spent. In order to raise the money to do all the lead service lines, you have to issue a bond. We're not able to do that yet. We're hopeful that, well, I mean, if the state was more serious about it, I don't know why it's a ballot question on this in this general election authorizing cities to issue these bonds for lead service replacement on private. There is no ballot question that I'm aware of. Maybe they'll get one together. But it's not something, we can't solve a constitutional problem with a local ordinance, a local resolution, or a local resolution. And until we get, I was recently involved helping to issue the recent ban or bonds that we issued in July. And you have to publish an official statement. You have to have an opinion of bond counsel, reputable bond counsel, that will say these bonds are bear the full faith and credit of the city of Troy. The city of Troy cannot get out from under paying. And as long as there's a constitutional provision that provides that we can expend the monies, no bond counsel worth its salt to do. Otherwise, they'll be personally liable for the issue. So I just, wanted to try to clear up a couple of those matters.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Does anyone wish to address the council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Council President, I just want to also let everybody know that I did call for a public hearing. No, not, sorry. It's been a long. A Public Utilities Committee meeting, August 22nd at 5:30. So we can get an update. Wow, it's been a long day. Update on the lead service lines replacement. Mayor, did you want to speak? Okay. That's it.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Brosnan. I would ask at this time that we have a moment of silence for a man who impacted our community greatly and who passed away today, Jack Berg. Everybody knew Jack Berg. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. All in favor of adjourning in memory of Jack? Aye.
Aye.